This week's Twitter poll asked what you people were most eager to hear about. We gave you 3 options. The first one was do's and don'ts for cover designs. The second one was basic design principles. And the third one was how to use text on a cover. Now, the answer was pretty clear because most people voted for do's and don'ts for a cover design. And what better way to do that than by showing you a couple of covers and going through the observations that I make while being a cover artist, but also as Lydia, who loves to go through the bookstore and pick up those books based on their covers. So here's just a very short disclaimer. These covers are not sponsored in any way, and nor does our analysis affect the quality of the book itself. So we are just saying what we see. And to make an opinion on this book, we leave that up to you. All right, Lydia, we have the first cover, and we actually got this one from someone who suggested this one through the website. Now, for me, the first thing I see is the color. It's the contrast between the black and the blue, which I think works really well. And you are very eager to say something. Go say it.
I love this cover. I would pick this book up. So it screams political thriller mystery. Just, the judge censor is, very prominent right there in front of you. But then, you start looking at all the little nuances of the cover and you see the censor's secret society. I am a sucker for a secret society. So if you're a listener and you're a member of a secret society, send me an invitation because I want one. I want like the cloak and dagger. Yeah, that's totally me. And then, you've got the scales of justice in the background. You've got the judge's gavel. And then in the bottom, the thriller, the mystery part, you've got sort of, the dark street in the car and stuff like that. So it definitely suggests that you're going to end up with, we've got a mystery on our hands. I feel like Scooby-Doo right now. But no, I just love, this would make me stop in a store and pick this book up and read the jacket copy. I haven't read the jacket copy. But yeah, I absolutely love this cover.
Yeah, I can see why, and also from a technical point of view, the edge work is really well done. Like I don't see any cut and paste edges there. I don't get the whole stock images just slapped together. This is really worked out. This is done by a professional. And also something that I really like to point out in terms of a do and don't on a cover, they don't use too many different types of fonts, so it is not a mess of, oh look, we have this fancy font here and we're gonna smack it something else right there. There is a really good balance between what the letters are doing on the screen, and I'm all here for it. Also, the only thing that I would actually, it's not necessarily a sort of down point or downside to this one, but it might be a bit too literal. Like yes, the scales are very symbolic, but I do feel that this cover might be giving away a little bit too much of the actual story. So the balance it's still good. Yeah.
There is a lot going on in it. Yeah. Yes. For me, I like busy covers. I do, and you've had this conundrum with me when designing my covers, and I'm like, I want fire here and I want skulls there, and you're like, no.
I think we had the biggest discussion with the text actually, because you wanted a lot of text on the front cover, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
So yes, it's a matter of preference to some degree, but also one of the things I really like about the text on this cover is it is very block text for most of it, so it's very clean and you can read it very well. The white really contrasts with the black and the blue, but then you have the J and the S in judge and censor, and you've got the swirling curly cues on the J and the S, and so that brings in just enough character into those letters that it adds to the intrigue of the title. So I really enjoy that. Is it busy in the background? Yes. I think you've got sort of a duality of, the judge being at the top and then censor. You've got sort of this sensory experience with the dark street, and it really brings out this intrigue and this mystery and this thriller. So you've got duality in the cover, but they were working together. Yes, it's, you know, for some people this might be too busy. For me, I would pick this book up. I'm gonna go and
okay. So give it a grade. Like if you give it points 1 to 10.
9.
Okay.
I would pick this. I'm actually probably gonna go look for this book.
I'm the tough teacher here. I'm gonna say 7.5. And still, and for me, and that's really good. That's really good for my standards. So that's, I think that would be the same about your 9. So, yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we have some tips and tricks coming forth from this one. Now, if we scroll down a little bit to the next one, look at this beauty. First thoughts.
It doesn't match the title. It feels very cramped. So the cover itself is screaming science fiction, because you've got the woman with the shears, and you've got the alien fish guy behind her. So it's, you know,
I think in the original cover it's supposed to be a wolf kind of thing. There, I checked this one out on.
Is a wolf?
I don't know. There's like.
Oh.
Yeah, I checked this one out through other websites, and this one is actually kind of famous by now for being a bad cover. And people are still arguing about, is it a wolf, is it a bear, is it a tree? People don't really know. And I'm saying this again, like, sorry, say that again?
I will. This is the hill I'm going to die on. It's a fish guy.
Okay, yeah. So is it a wolf, is it a bear, is it a fish guy? Like, it can go any kind of direction. I think it's funny though that you're calling this a sci-fi cover, because for me, I thought it was going to be fantasy because of for some reason the red-haired girl with the blue eyes, and then there's also the color schematics kind of suggest fantasy, but
it does. Fantasy and sci-fi can kind of cross some boundaries a little bit. Yeah. I think why it screams sci-fi to me is because when I saw the image in the background, I immediately thought fish guy.
Could be an alien.
Yeah. You know, alien fish guy. So I have to be a little bit nice. I think she's pretty. I like her red hair, and I love her freckles, and I love the fact that there's something that different on a cover, because you don't see a lot of redheaded freckled people on a cover. So
except when
I'm always one of those. For every critique, I do look for something, you know, something positive to say, because I don't like putting people down.
No. And this is not about putting it down. This is about. No, it's I get it. I mean, there are good things to say about this.
I think she's very pretty, but it's too much. And then you get into the text, you can very clearly see the author's name, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
The title of the book gets lost though. It took me a couple of tries. It's not necessarily the font. I don't know in terms of a graphic design perspective how you would bring this forward a little bit, but Moira's gets lost in the image, and I don't know if that's just something that you maybe would need to outline or shadow or something like that.
Yeah, a simple drop shadow would even fix that problem. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those you have to squint, like and I think the I and the R in Moira is where I'm getting really lost, because it took me a minute to realize it was Moira, not Mona. So
yeah.
And
that's the font. Yeah, that's not even the placement. That's just the font itself.
Yeah. I like the font, but it doesn't work because everything else is so busy.
Mm-hmm.
It you know, I like the daggered T's, and I happen to be drawn to this kind of font, but it takes me a minute to really. And the title doesn't match what's going on in the images.
I even have no idea. By this cover, I couldn't have a clue what this book is about a girl with some scissors and a big giant monster behind her. But again, talking about the technicalities, the way this has been cut and pasted into the document, there is no edge work, nothing. Again, I agree with you with the name of the author being on top and being very readable, which is really well done actually. Color schematically, I also think it works. Like the combination of colors are actually okay. It's just that the way this has been finalized, for me, that's a no.
Yeah, I like the fact that the monster is very dark and she's very vibrant. I mean, that definitely speaks to the dichotomy of good and evil. So that does, work in that regard,
Yeah.
but the rest of it doesn't fit. The title doesn't
No.
fit.
No, exactly.
We don't know, is the monster following Moira in her footsteps, or is Moira looking over her shoulder all the time because the monster's in her footsteps and she's about to get
She's
eaten
in the
by
monster's
aliens,
footsteps. Could
fish
even be.
guy, wolf
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
snarling, whatever. And then as far as the author's name, yes, it's very clear, you can read it, but it's almost too spread out for me.
Yeah, there was no white space
like
around it. Yeah.
It's right there on the edge, but also it's stretched, so it kind of looks skewed. And that might just be I have really crappy eyesight.
No,
but
I get that.
It was, it was almost like he's making his name the banner across the top of the book, which
you would need more white space around it, and that's also one of the do's for cover design. Make sure there is enough space around any text to make sure that it doesn't fall off your page, or it doesn't give it the idea that something has been crammed into a cover. Use the space that you have.
Yeah, I've had that issue with covers before, where you get it and it looks good, and and then of course you're uploading the cover to Amazon Publishing, and they give you like a centimeter where they're like, this is so, it throws everything. Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
And I've come to you crying and pulling my hair out, like, I don't understand, it won't fit on the thing in the red line, and yeah, it's so I could see this having some issues depending on what platform he's uploading it to, for getting it to specs for publishing and stuff like that. So it's there are elements of it that are done well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the concept of the thing, it's a very high concept cover, which is actually great.
But they're not put together cohesively.
Exactly.
And I also have to wonder what she's going to do with those scissors, because like they're not threatening the monster behind her at all. It looks like she's going to try to cut off her nose, and I feel bad.
Yeah, and she's looking very, okay. All right, okay.
Well, it's like I said, parts of it are okay, but it doesn't work together.
Okay, give it points 1 to 10.
I would give this one a 3.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna agree with that. I'm not gonna go lower than a 3. All right. Okay, so the third cover is going to be a surprise cover for you, and I am going to paste it right now.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Look at that! No. It's my cover! Oh,
okay, so for the third one, we are looking at South of Heaven, West of Hell's Bells. And I did this because is it this month that it's releasing, or is it next month?
September 22nd, so less than a month, yes.
Yes, so you must be super excited about that.
Yeah, very excited. I'm super excited. So this is the one we were talking a little bit about earlier, as far as the gambling, and Catriona Clark, who is my main character, she's really gambling with the lives of her Hellcats. So as you can see with this cover, you've got the gambling table, the poker table, and you've got the poker card, and then you've also got sort of this symbolism of you've got a hellhound on top and a hellcat on bottom, or vice versa, I'm sorry. And so this one we really bring in the rival gang, the hellhounds, into South of Heaven, West of Hell's Bells, and that is in the book blurb. So for those of you, obviously you can't see that right now, but so you've got that symbolism there. And you've got the playing card, the gambling card. And I think what I love about this is the heart and the spade. So I don't know what it is about poker. Those have always been my 2 favorite suits, but you've really got that love she has for her Hellcats. That to me anyway is what that symbolizes on the gambling, on the playing card. And then you've got the spade. So like she's digging her own grave in some of the choices that she's making. So when it comes to working with the hellhounds, that's really what that kind of represents for me. And then of course you've got the cigarette. She's a demon. I mean, she's a sinner, and smoking's bad. Quit
Yeah.
if you're smoking.
That was
I'm
one of
not gonna-
my comments on this cover. It might actually not be appropriate for every audience, considering there's a cigarette in there, so there might be some backlash for
But-
kids who pick this up at a library. But
I love the fact that I tell you I need fire, and so you literally put a cigarette burn in my gambling table, and you know it just that just brings in such a symbolism and a metaphor for, you know, she's just going to set the whole table on fire. You know, she's gambling with the lives of people, and you know, she's trying to atone for her own sins so she can go to heaven, but you know, she's just going to burn it to the ground because of the choices that she makes. So I love this cover. It's one of my favorites.
so for me, it would be a little bit weird to judge this cover, and I'm not going to give it any numbers because obviously I made it. But in terms of, again, the do's and don'ts on a cover work, if you look carefully, you see that there's only one font being used here. Everything is at the same font, so it creates a sort of unity. And at the same time, this is one of those covers where it's a full art piece. If you look at the whole thing is a piece of art. But it's so high in concept that there is not so much to see. It's not like we get one of those really old-fashioned, like the classic sci-fi art prints, because they would just be posters smacked on a book cover, which I personally love that. But this is like the ultimate balance between these two things. It's super high in concept, at the same time it's very artistic.
And I love the color. There's not a lot of color going on, but the color that is there is really deep and rich, which really speaks to me. I love, like I said, like royal blues and emeralds and ruby reds. You know, that just speaks to me the most. So the fact that the royal blue is in here, and then you've got sort of the monotone, the neutral colors, really works. And I mean, you know, as far as what's actually on the cover, there's a playing card and there's a cigarette. So there's not a lot of stuff, like tangible items. But when you start looking at the nuances of what is on there, like you've got the cigarette smoke, you've got the ashes and the cinders from that cigarette. And, you know, on the playing card itself, in addition to the pictures of the Hellcat and the Hellhound skulls and the suit, the heart and the spade, like if you look at the border of the card, I love Celtic knotwork. So the fact that the card is designed in this pattern also speaks to me, because you learn in this book that Catriona is of Irish descent. So that
I did not even know that while I was making this.
So when you did it, and I saw it, I was just, oh, that's amazing. So yeah, there's not a lot on the cover, but what's there has, you know, you can start to, when you really start looking at it, you can bring, you know, start picking out the details of what's there. And, you know, looking at the Hellcat and the Hellhound, you've got that sword going through both skulls. I think in Highway to Hell, there was the Hellcat with one dagger. And that really speaks to bringing the hounds and the cats together, and that does start to happen in South of Heaven, West of Hell. I can't give everything away, but
that's okay.
Yeah. So you know,
and in terms again of the do's and don'ts, so high concept images are they work if done well. You know, it definitely works, because you can tell like half the story based on this single image, while there's not even that much to see. Another do is, compared to the last or the previous cover we looked at, there is a lot of white space around here. So if you look at where the text has been placed, there is a proper border of nothing around it. So it doesn't give you the feeling that the text has been crammed onto the page and it just had to fit there. You know, I mean, it's a pretty long title, South of Heaven, West of Hell's Bells. Break it up, make it one chunk as we've done here, but separate them in two different lines. So give them space to breathe. Again, the fonts, so don't use too many fonts. I would say 2 is the maximum. 3 if done well, but you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to work with 3 different fonts. Edge work.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, let me ask you, if you were to do 3 fonts, would you do title in one font with the subtitle, like you have Hellfire Series Book 2, and then maybe author in a font, and then I know some people do put their taglines on the front of their book, so would that be like the third? Would that be how you would, you know, conceptually, how would you do that to make it
really depends. It really depends. Like it is possible to have the author's name in a different font and then the title in a different font and a tagline. But still, between the author's name and the tagline, I would pick two fonts that look very much alike. So they can be different, but they need to be pretty similar so that it doesn't become obvious, because otherwise it just becomes a sort of mumbo jumbo, put stuff together, and it's going to confuse you. And these are the same thing I did with the first book, the Highway to Hell. This almost becomes a branding. Like, if you show people these covers, they are going to recognize the fonts, they are going to recognize the style this has been made in, and that is just what I went for when I designed these covers. So that is also something to consider, again, in terms of do's and don'ts. If you really feel like the book that you're publishing is going to be your benchmark, it's going to be the one that you are going to be, in a way, famous with, make sure that it's something you can brand. Make sure it has a sort of unity in there, and that we can start to recognize your work by looking at any piece of what you have, because it's all connected through a certain style. So I hope that kind of helped. And we've looked at a couple of covers, and we've seen really good ones. We've seen some that we definitely have an opinion about, but I think we've covered most of the.
Yeah, what last things that I would add to this is I love how gritty it is, because we're really talking about demons and redemption, and the the difference between heaven and hell. And so I love that there's that darkness to it, there's that grittiness, and even on the card itself, the card is not perfect. There's stains and there's the wrinkle and stuff like that. But at the same time, you do have those little elements of that could symbolize hope in regards to the heart and the Celtic heritage, the Celtic knotwork and stuff like that. So talking about author branding and things like that, I can't show them because once the contract was done with the press, this is a re-release as well as Highway to Hell. I was contracted with a publisher. I can no longer use those covers. They're not my property anymore. So they are still out on the internet. When you search these titles, you will see them. Yeah. But we had to go in an entirely different direction to be able to rebrand and to get this. And so with the other covers, they were more stock images, and that's okay. They worked for the sort of concept of the covers that I was going with, which was motorcycles. Both covers featured a motorcycle, and this one is really more symbolic, I think. And that's, in writing the stories, I have a lot of that in there. There are a lot of sort of topics that aren't physical issues or conflict. There's a lot of internal conflict of self. So the being able to bring in this sort of abstract idea really helps brand this series in a way that I think fits a little bit better. So that's why I love them so much, and it's definitely going to set them apart from where it was going before. So yeah.
Of course, we're also very curious to opinions of you who is watching this episode. So if you want to share your opinions about the covers we just showed you, feel free, and please do, to leave a comment below. We are curious to know what you think.